And lastly, in terms of things that we're offering on the open day, we're doing an admissions talk, 12 to 1 p.m.
It'll be sort of a live podcast.
It'd be like a live podcast. So if you watch a lot of these podcasts and you don't feel like the need to come, then I think that'd be a smart decision. But if you did have any specific questions for Marcus, he's director of admissions, makes the decisions alongside the academics with students' applications. Definitely do come. We'll be there to answer any of your questions. And we've also got a lot of Maths for Science textbooks, these small textbooks that we're giving out for free, that will be on the welcome desk. So as soon as you come into Trinity Hall, we have these Isaac's Physics maths textbooks. If you come and they're all gone, they shouldn't be. We have I think 1,000 or so, a few thousand. But if they do happen to go, you can check on a link in the caption where you can buy them. I think they're fairly a few quid.
Yep, good to go.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with a returning guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Marcus Tomlin. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Trinity Hall, which, as I think everybody knows, just means I oversee all aspects of the admissions process, including open days.
Nice, yeah, exactly. So we're recording this at June, and this should be released fairly soon for the July open days that are happening early next month. And we're here to just explain what open days are, provide advice for how to navigate them, because there's a lot going on. So Marcus, to start off, for anyone who's watching and they don't know what are open days, what are they?
Well, the clue's kind of in the name, I guess. It's a day, or really there are several days throughout the year, when the university is open for people to come and have a look round, especially people who are thinking of applying. And what it means is you'll be able to look around any of the colleges that you're interested in seeing, but you'll also be able to look around any of the faculties and departments that you're interested in seeing. And we should say that if you are thinking of applying to Cambridge, you're welcome to come and look around, particularly the colleges, pretty much at any time of the year. So if you show up, even if it's in, November or if it's in February, if you go to the Porter's Lodge at the college, that's usually the sort of place where you enter the college. And if you say, I'm thinking of applying, I'd like to have a look round, usually they'll let you do that. They're very happy for you to do that. But what's special about these larger scale open days is that there's just more people around who can answer any questions you might have, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit more in this podcast. So these are kind of like special open days when everything is available to be seen, and there are lots of people who are available to ask any questions. So that's why they're particularly important.
Nice. So in the caption, we'll have the link having all of the events of the open days. That's on the University of Cambridge website. And if you are attending the Cambridge Open Days, you should book beforehand, and that's also on the Cambridge website. And I think I just wanted to make clear or ask you, given that you have to book beforehand on the website for the open days, are the open days like an event where the activities are planned for you and the logistics of kind of what you'll be doing on the day planned for you? Or would you say the open days are something where you have to kind of choose what you want to do on the day?
It's a bit of a mixture of the two. So there are certain events that are sort of planned. So faculties and departments might put on sample lectures. They might organise tours that only take place at particular times, things like that. And also some of the colleges will have tours that perhaps take place at particular times. And again, they may also organise talks relating to admissions related things. But it's not that the whole day is completely scheduled. It's not like there's some sort of, from 10 o'clock to 10:15, you have to be here doing this thing. And then from 10:15 to 10:30, you have to be somewhere else. There'll be an element of that. There might be 2 or 3 things in the day that do take place at particular times, but the rest of it is very flexible. And you're certainly very welcome just to sort of, wander through Cambridge, pop into any colleges that you're interested in, and you don't have to do that at a particular time. It doesn't have to be a sort of like military schedule. It can be very flexible. So it's a bit of a mixture of the two, I would say.
Because a lot of the events that are happening across the colleges and the departments in the university, a lot of those events are at the same time. So people who are coming for the open day are going to have to choose what they want to do, I imagine.
That's right. And sometimes it might be something that occurs maybe 3 or 4 times during one of the days. It might be something that repeats, a talk or something that repeats a couple of times, but not always. So as you say, there will sometimes be clashes. And that's why, and again, we can talk about this a little bit more perhaps on a bit later, but that's why planning what you're going to do on the day when you come to visit us, if you're able to come on one of the days, is quite important. Otherwise, you might go home thinking, oh, I wish I'd thought about that a bit in advance because I feel like I sort of wasted an opportunity or something.
Nice. And with regards to planning, would you say with travel arrangements, that's definitely something that people should be thinking beforehand rather than planning on the day, or the fact that the train station is like a 25-minute walk. So think that maybe thinking of getting the bus if they come with a big group of people, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think as with any travel, say if you're coming to Cambridge by train, as a lot of people do for the open days, if you book your tickets further ahead, in advance, it's often cheaper. So if you just rock up at the station on the day and get a ticket, you'll be able to do that, but it's obviously more expensive. So if you're being a bit careful about your finances, as many of the people who come on the open days are, a bit of planning ahead can save you a bit of money. But as you say, the train station at Cambridge isn't particularly central. It's about a 25-minute walk from the train station to the centre of town. And it's nice, you go past some nice things. It's not that it's an unpleasant walk, but it is a bit of a distance. There are many towns and cities where the train station is pretty much right in the centre. It all has to do with when the station was built in Cambridge in I think it was the 1840s, and they didn't want it bringing all that noise and bustle to the old centre of the town. So it was placed a little bit further out. So it's a bit inconvenient, but again, if you know that in advance, you can plan. So the advice I often give people is wear comfortable shoes. You're not here to try and impress us with your fashion sense. You're here to hopefully have a useful look round and to ask some questions. So wear stuff that you're going to feel comfortable walking. If you choose to walk, as you say, you can take a bus. There are buses that come in from the station, but all of that, just plan ahead, and then the day goes really smoothly and you don't have to stress about that stuff on the day.
So alongside the talks and events that are happening in departments and some events that are happening in colleges, I imagine there aren't specific times that that you'd have to go into a college that they're open throughout the day.
Yeah, pretty much. Normally they're open from, it can vary slightly, but sort of 9 o'clock, sort of 9:30 until maybe sort of, 4:30, something like that. And that's a sort of pretty typical thing. So in other words, you won't be able to show up at sort of 11 o'clock at night on one of the open days and expect to have lots of people around to answer your questions. It's kind of like, normal working day hours kind of thing. Think sort of 9 o'clock until about 4:30 or something like that. But if you show up sort of during that time, you'll certainly be able to get into the colleges and into the relevant parts of the faculties and departments. So
would you say, so you have between 9 to 5 or 9 to half 4 to go to the colleges and have a look around, is it a smart way to plan your open day by choosing which events and talks you want to go to, and then working around that, choosing which colleges you want to visit?
Yeah, I think that'd be really sensible. So if there is a particular talk or a few talks that you're really interested in, and if they're only happening once during the day, you should certainly prioritize them, because that's going to be your one opportunity to attend that talk or whatever it is. But then the things that are more flexible, like visiting a number of colleges, it doesn't matter whether you do that at 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's where there's the flexibility. So be really clear about the things that aren't flexible and the things that are flexible, and then structure your sort of plan for the day around that.
Nice. And so with regards to visiting colleges, there's 29 undergraduate colleges, and it's impossible to see all of them.
I mean,
How many would you say is sensible for someone to try to visit on one open day? And do you think should students just decide like a list beforehand of which ones they want to visit, would you say?
I think it is useful to have thought about it in advance, because I think if you just hop on a train and arrive in Cambridge and get into the centre of town and think, okay, what am I going to do? It's going to be a bit too confusing on the day, because you just won't really know what's going to be most helpful. Whereas if you've thought about it a little bit in advance, and if you've got maybe a sort of a short list, I mean, I would say on an open day, typical open day, you can certainly have a look around sort of, I don't know, let's say 5 colleges really well, and get a good sense of them, and maybe talk to some of the people and get answers to some of your questions. I mean, if you're super speedy, you might get to sort of 6, maybe 7. But I think as soon as you get into the sort of double figures realm, like, 10, 11, 12, it's not just that it will be difficult to do that kind of meaningfully in the time available. As you said, if you try and get around all of them, I mean, that's probably just about possible in terms of physics, but what are you going to take away from it? You're just not going to be able to remember whether that thing that you liked was in that college or that other one. It'll all just blur and become a kind of chaotic sort of mosaic in your head of little things that you half remember. It's much better to have a sort of clearer idea as to the ones that you want to prioritize, and that doesn't stop you popping into another one if you happen to see it and if it happens to look interesting on the day. But if you've got a little list and you're sort of working your way through it, that can be helpful. And it can also be good in advance to think about the geography of it, where things are located. Certainly in the sort of old centre of the town, some of the colleges are really very, very close to each other. I mean, they really are just sort of a few meters apart. So there are some colleges where you can get to sort of 3 in a row quite quickly. But there are other colleges just located in different parts of the town where it might be a sort of 10-minute walk to get there. And so again, be sensible about the planning around that. See the colleges that are clustered close together, maybe one after another, and then do the little walk to look at the other one that you're interested in that's a bit further out. I mean, all of this sounds like common sense, but it is useful to have thought it through a bit in advance.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have definitely seen people arrive on open day thinking that there will be an element of it'll be quite obvious to know what to do, but then when you arrive, you're looking at a lot of people who have come with a plan, and it might feel a bit disorientating if you haven't chosen or have like a rough idea of what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Because it can be quite overwhelming. There's so many choices to make. With regards to making a short list of colleges, we have done a podcast on choosing college, and there are definitely a variety of ways or sets of criteria that you can distinguish between the colleges before even having a look at them. Like if you're wanting to look at what kind of accommodation the colleges provide, you can look at that online. The location of where they are in the city, how close they are to the department. Looking at their offsite accommodation, and colleges also, some of them have virtual tours, which you can find on the Central University website. And Trinity Hall, we have a virtual tour for this college. If you want to have a look through the virtual tours, and then you can kind of think, or that looks quite nice, I want to go visit there on the day.
And it is worth just mentioning, I mean, looking at the virtual tours for things like accommodation, getting a sense of the accommodation, absolutely, totally worthwhile. It is also the case that on the open days, we have a certain number of student rooms that are open, that are available for people to have a look at. So again, if you have a look on the virtual tour and you think, oh, that accommodation looks nice, but then you want to just be absolutely certain that it is what it appears to be, then if you do come on the open day, as I say, obviously we don't open up all the student rooms because some of them are being used and things like that. But there might be, sort of 3, 4, 5 that are available in any given college that you can visit and actually get a real sense of, okay, what would it be like if this was my room? How would I settle in, and what's the view like, and all of that kind of stuff.
Nice. Another thing I want to talk about is that some colleges have all of their accommodation in their central site of the college, and a lot of colleges have off-site accommodation. And I was wondering if you'd be able to explain what is off-site accommodation.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly the case for the kind of older colleges that are right in the sort of old centre of the town, where there just isn't room these days for all the students who go to that college to be accommodated on that old site. I mean, back in the day when the colleges were being set up, I mean, the number of students was really very, very small, and the large increase in the number of students is really kind of at the end of the 19th century, but really it's a 20th century thing. So many of those colleges have had to expand the amount of student accommodation that they provide, and since there just isn't space to do that in the sort of old part of the college, many of them have kind of separate accommodation blocks, if you like, on another site, and often there can be real advantages to having a room on the as part of the sort of off-site accommodation. That's often where, say, the sports facilities are. So, it's not really possible to have particularly elaborate sports facilities on the site of, like the old part of the college, because it's just too small to have like a load of football pitches or something when it's this ancient medieval place. But you can do that in these areas where there's the sort of more recent accommodation, the sort of more modern accommodation. There's often space there for tennis courts and squash courts and football pitches and whatever. So again, that's worth having a look at, either through the virtual tours or, again, during the actual open days. It's sometimes possible to look at those spaces as well, just to get a real sense as to the full range of, say, accommodation options that a given college offers.
Yeah, definitely. As someone, like, as a graduate, and when I was a student who went to a college that had off-site accommodation, I think the off-site accommodation is almost as important as the central site in terms of your experience of your undergraduate studies and your life and where you're living. And it's definitely worth, when you're choosing your colleges, to look at what their off-site accommodation is like, as well as their on-site, so you can see where you'll be living. And off-site accommodation will also be open during the open days. And our off-site accommodation, the Whitfield site, will be open for students to have a look around on the open days. It's just by Churchill College and Fitzwilliam College. So if you wanted to have a look on the days, you can do that, and you should be able to have a look at other colleges' off-site accommodation. There should be current students giving tours around the site. And Trinity Hall's one, Whitfield site, is really nice. The accommodation is really modern. There's huge sports facilities. If you're around West Cambridge near Churchill College or Fitzwilliam, you're going to be around, the off-site accommodation is definitely worth having a look whilst you're there. And in our virtual tour, our virtual tours have footage of the off-site accommodation as well as on-site accommodation as well. I know a lot of students, Trinity Hall students, have said they liked the fact that the central site is in the centre of the college, whereas the off-site accommodation is, I think, like like a 5-minute cycle, but just a bit further out enough to be able to feel like they're both living in West Cambridge. And
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, the sort of older parts of the older colleges, I mean, they're really lovely, but they often don't offer, for instance, ensuite rooms. So if you want a room with, like, your own shower and your own loo and stuff like that, you're probably going to find that as part of the off-site accommodation. So again, it depends how you want to live, as a student. Some people like being in the older part, knowing that it comes with a few sort of inconveniences in terms of sort of modern comforts, whereas other people like being able to eat their meals in the old part, but then live in a more modern part where they've got good heating and I say, their own shower and stuff like that.
No, yeah, exactly. And in terms of how many en suites there are for the accommodation for each college, you should be able to find that online.
Should all be on the web pages. Yep.
Another thing that I think we should probably mention is that students might not realise that academics tend to be present in the open days, not just mostly in the departments, but also at the colleges. And it's a really good opportunity to talk to academics. I was wondering if you could talk more about that.
Yeah, exactly. There will certainly be some available at the faculties and departments. That's always the case. At the colleges, it's done slightly differently. So there isn't just one pattern, if you like, that you'll find at every college. But if you know that you would really like to speak to an academic about a particular thing relating to the course or whatever it is, then when you go into that college, it's worth sort of asking the people at the desk. There's normally a little desk at the front with people sort of welcoming the open day visitors. It's worth just asking there, would it be possible to speak to someone in law or medicine or whatever it may be? And they'll explain what the sort of pattern is for that college. Again, if you plan things carefully in advance, you might have looked at the web pages, so you maybe have some idea of what that college is offering in advance. But even if you haven't done that, if you just ask them, they'll say, "Oh yeah, we've got a director of studies in law who's available. I can take you over to them or whatever it may be." So that is an important part of the open days. And as I say, that's something that you can't necessarily do if you just show up by chance, say, on a random day in February. You might be able to have a look around the college, but there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll be able to speak to any of the academics, because they'll be busy lecturing and teaching and doing all the stuff that academics do.
Yeah. And normally the academics that you find at each college, so when you're visiting a college on the open day and there's like a welcome table and normally the academics should be there, those academics will tend to be teaching primarily at that college.
Yes, yeah. Although, again, on previous podcasts, we've explained a little bit about how the teaching works. And so while you are almost certainly taught by academics in your college that teach your subject, you're not exclusively taught by them. And so during your career as a Cambridge student, you will be taught by academics from a range of colleges. On the open days, again, you mustn't think, well, I'm going to apply to that college because it means I'll only be taught by that one nice person who I met. I'm sure that person may well end up teaching you for some of the things, but you'll also be taught by quite a large number of other people as well. So don't sort of make decisions based on reasons that are a little bit mistaken, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So. And it differs between the subjects. So if you are talking to an academic and you do like them, it's worth just also asking, do you teach at this college? If I was to apply for this subject, because there are a lot of subjects where I think they call it an external DOS. You'll be being taught by an academic from a different college.
Yep.
And because the courses are taught from the department in terms of everyone takes the same exams, for most questions, say if you're wanting to apply for history and you have a list of questions about the history course and you want to go to a certain college, and on that specific open day, let's say the history academic just doesn't happen to be there when you've arrived, but you found a history academic elsewhere, no matter where you find the academics, they should be able to cater to your questions about the course.
Exactly. Anyone who's involved in the faculty or department and involved in kind of teaching that course centrally should be able to answer the sort of questions you're likely to have about, particular papers, as we call them, that might be available in the second year, or whatever it is, whatever your questions are, they should be able to answer them.
Nice. Now, talking a bit more about the open day and what happens in each of the colleges, can you, so say I'm a visitor, I come into an open day, what am I expecting? Are there going to be current students there who I can talk to? Are there tours?
Yep, all of that. There's always current students, and they're often the ones who lead the tours that happen. It's a really great opportunity to talk to some people who are currently students here, because people like me and directors of studies, I mean, yes, we can hopefully give a lot of information about the various processes and things to do with the courses that are taught, but none of us can pretend that we're currently students who are currently experiencing it. And so I think getting that crucial perspective from people who are at that very moment studying that particular course, I think that's really important, and that's one of the things that the open days provide. But yeah, so you can get tours of the college, you get a chance to talk to current undergraduates, you get a chance to talk to the admissions team. So if you have questions about any aspect of the admissions process, kind of thing that we cover on these podcasts, it's a good opportunity to have those questions answered. As we've already said, you potentially have a chance to talk to a director of studies or an academic in the subject you're applying for. You get the opportunity to look at some of the student accommodation, again, as we've mentioned already. And you just generally get a chance to look at what the college has to offer. You'll get to see the dining hall, where all the students eat most of their meals. If you're interested in sort of choral music and stuff like that, you can get to have a look around the chapel. All aspects of what the colleges offer can be sort of considered and assessed during the open days. So
yeah, I would definitely recommend when you're going on college tours to see the library, because I think that's probably one of the one of the key things that distinguish between the colleges, as well as the general architecture of the college itself and the land space. Because as a student, you will be able to go to any of the department libraries, but you won't have access to other colleges' libraries.
That's right.
You'll only be able to go if you're with a friend from that college. So that isn't the worst reason of what to choose a college, unless you see yourself.
Exactly. And even though these days, a lot of the material that people use is available online. So you might think, well, I'm not likely to use too many books from the shelf. That might be the case for certain subjects anyway. It's still a really good working place. You can go there with your laptop and it's just a study space, because not everyone likes studying in their own room, because some people find it hard then to relax if they've been studying in their room. So it's absolutely worth looking at the library, even if you're applying for a subject where you think, well, I'm unlikely to use any sort of hard copy books that often during my course. It's still a space that you might well come to use a lot while you're writing Python scripts, or while you're looking at materials that have been made available to you online.
Nice. Yeah. I don't know what the other libraries in Cambridge look like, but Trinity Hall's one is really nice, and it overlooks the river. It's definitely worth looking at if you do come here. And lastly, in terms of things that we're offering, on the open day, we're doing an admissions talk, 12 to 1 p.m.
It'll be sort of a live podcast.
It'll be like a live podcast. So if you watch a lot of these podcasts and you don't feel like the need to come, then don't. I think that'd be a smart decision. But if you did have any specific questions for Marcus, he's director of admissions, makes the decisions alongside the academics with students' applications. Definitely do come. We'll be there to answer any of your questions. And we've also got a lot of Maths for Science textbooks, these small textbooks that we're giving out for free, that will be on the welcome desk. So as soon as you come into Trinity Hall, we have these Isaac's Physics maths textbooks. If you come and they're all gone, they shouldn't be. We have I think 1,000 or so, a few thousand. But if they do happen to go, you can check on a link in the caption where you can buy them. I think they're fairly like a few quid. Yeah, but I think that's everything. Unless there's any.
I don't think so. But I think the main messages are just plan ahead if you're thinking of coming. So then you'll make it a really enjoyable day, and have a chance to look around, and any questions you have, we can answer them. And I think just planning ahead so that you make sure that happens. That's the smart move.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe have a sandwich in your bag. You might not have time to sit down and eat.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think people sometimes get a bit dehydrated, and they sometimes end up skipping a meal, and so come with snacks.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys next time. Oh, nice.
I think it was fine. I was thinking, do we want